My name is Elena, and I am an old woman now. My hands tremble as I write this, but my heart remains steady, filled with a love that has endured more than a lifetime's worth of pain and joy. This is the story of my son, Tomas, and how he came back to me after being lost for 15 long years. Tomas was my only child, my light in a world often dark. When he was little, he had a laugh that could melt the coldest winter day. His father passed away when Tomas was only 10, and from then on, we were each other's anchor. He grew into a strong, kind-hearted young man, full of dreams and eager to make a difference in the world. But then the war came, as wars always do, tearing apart lives and families with its cruel hands. Tomas was barely 20 when he told me he had enlisted. "For you, Mama," he said, "so you can live in a safer world." My heart broke that day, but I smiled and kissed his forehead, whispering prayers that he would return to me, whole and unharmed. I remember the day he left, standing at the edge of the dirt road in his crisp uniform. He waved as the truck carried him away, and I waved back, tears streaming down my face. The house felt emptier than ever without him, but I busied myself with letters I wrote to him every week. His replies were sparse, but they were enough to sustain me. A line here, a word there, little fragments of my Tomas. Until the letters stopped. Months turned into years, and still, there was no word of him. I heard rumors from other families. Soldiers captured, others killed. I clung to hope, praying every night that my boy was alive, that he would find his way back to me. But hope is a heavy burden to carry, and over time, even I began to falter. I aged more in those years than I ever had before. My hair turned gray, my hands grew frail, and the laughter Tomas had brought into my life became a distant memory. People in the village would murmur their sympathies, but no one truly understood the depth of my loss. How could they? A mother's love for her child is like no other. And then, 15 years after Tomas had vanished, there came a knock at my door. It was a quiet evening, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the fields. I shuffled to the door, my heart already stirring with something I dared not name. When I opened it, there he stood. He was no longer the young man I had sent off to war. His face was weathered, his eyes shadowed with a weight I could not fathom. Scars crisscrossed his arms, and he leaned heavily on a cane. But it was him, my Tomas. "Mama," he whispered, his voice hoarse but unmistakably his. I collapsed into his arms, sobbing like I hadn't in years. He held me as tightly as his weakened body could manage, and for a moment, it was as though the years melted away. Later, as we sat by the fire, he told me his story. He had been captured early in the war, held as a prisoner in enemy territory. Escape had seemed impossible, but over the years, he had found his moment. He had wandered, survived, and finally made his way home. "But I'm not the same, Mama," he said, his voice breaking. "The things I've seen, the things I've done. I don't know if I can be the Tomas you remember." I took his hands in mine, feeling the rough calluses and scars. "You are my son," I said firmly. "No matter what has happened, no matter how you've changed, my love for you has not. It never will." We began again, Tomas and I. He wasn't the same boy who had left, and I wasn't the same mother who had waved him off. But our love for each other remained, a thread that time and war could not sever. He struggled, of course. Nightmares haunted him, and there were days when he barely spoke. But I was patient, as only a mother can be. Slowly, I saw glimpses of my Tomas returning. The way he smiled when he fixed the old fence, the quiet hum of his voice as he helped with the garden. Now, as I sit here writing this, Tomas is outside, working in the field. The sun is setting, casting its golden light over the hills. I know we will never truly leave behind the pain of those years, but we have something stronger. The bond of a mother and her son, unbroken and unbreakable. I lost him once, but he came back to me. And that is enough.